Hey guys, how's it going? Ooh, that feels weird. It's been a long time since I've been in front of a camera. Wow. How's it going, everybody? First off, I just want to apologize. I'm a little bit sick, so I might sound kind of off right now. And also, the shop is a complete mess. Winter is now here for us, and everything has been piled and swept in here out of the way. So hopefully that'll be improving over the course of these videos. So as you can see, there's some new stuff going on behind me. There is another bike. It is a 2004 Ninja 500. This is, of course, my 2010 Ninja 250 that I've been riding for the last several years. I know I've been kind of absent for the last 2 years or so, and I just haven't overly felt like vlogging or had any content that I felt was worth making. But now I've got a new project going on that I think you guys are really going to like, and I figured I'd film it so that we can follow along. So basically what the plan is, I have another bike that is neither of these two, so I want to turn this into a drag bike for drag racing next summer at our local races. It's not really your typical platform to start out with, but the goal of this project is actually to swap the Ninja 500 engine into the 250 chassis, and that's going to be the basis for the drag bike. A lot of you are going to be wondering why. That's a question that I've already gotten a lot. So the reason that I want to do this engine swap, I really like the looks of the Ninja 250, the feel of it, everything. It's been great to me. A lot of people say, well, if you want more power, why don't you just get a different bike or ride this or whatever. Well, I like this bike a lot. This has been great. Selling this right now is not really going to get me any profit because the engine now is actually completely dead in this bike. I'm going to take it apart as well, see what I can do. Maybe I'll be able to salvage it for another interesting build or something like that in the future. But for right now, for all intents and purposes, this engine is toast. So we already started out like that. There's no reason to be concerned that, you know, this bike could be good for someone else to learn on or whatever. It's full of nightmares at this point. So that's where this bike comes in. The 500 is a great power plant, super reliable, and has about twice as much both horsepower and torque as the Ninja 250. So it's going to make a good basis for the drag bike. I'll be racing 8th mile drags, so I'm not too concerned about the top end. I'll be going with some pretty low gearing, just trying to get it down the track as fast as possible in a nice light chassis. The reason why I went with the 500 as opposed to maybe the 650 or something bigger is this chassis is not actually able to handle much more power than that. This chassis actually might not even really like the 500 engine, so we'll see what happens with that. I might have to do some bracing or stuff in the future. But putting something bigger like a 650 or even a 4-cylinder Ninja engine in this is just certainly wouldn't be a very practical task. So this series basically, I'm going to kind of run over it, not so much as a how-to. I don't expect many people are going to want to necessarily do this themselves. It's going to be quite a complicated procedure, but I'm definitely going to follow it along as like a build series, and there is going to be some technical stuff. I'm going to get into some of the math behind it when I'm building the exhaust and doing stuff like that. There's a lot of physics that goes into it, but I'm going to try and keep that stuff fairly short because I know most of you guys probably don't have too much interest in actually all the math and work that goes behind it, so those segments will be pretty short. And basically any of the stuff that has math or lots of technical work and things in it, I'll kind of go over that quickly at the start of the video, and then you'll see time-lapse and work and me explaining what I'm actually doing to build those things, like the exhaust and the electronics and stuff like that. So I will have some diagrams, some bench work and stuff, but for the most part this is going to be focused on the actual work and how the build's coming along. We're going to start with a teardown of the 500, so I'm going to get that engine out, and we're actually going to totally strip it down. It only has 7,000 kilometers on it. The bike has barely ever been used. but I still want to make sure that everything looks good, check my ring end gaps, stuff like that. If I need new rings, if I need valves reseated or stuff like that, then this would be the ideal time to do it instead of pulling it back apart in the future. And when it's apart, we might flow bench test the intake and exhaust. We're definitely going to do a port and polish, clean up the intake, clean up the exhaust, try and make as much power as we can out of the 500 engine. Because it's a pretty old design. This engine design hasn't really been changed since the 80s. It was probably a pretty rough casting, so there'll likely be a few horsepower at least to pick up in polishing and smoothing out the intake and port matching, stuff like that, so that you can get better airflow in and out, which means more fuel and more power. So that's all going to be the kind of first steps of the video. Will actually be building the engine. We're going to do weight balancing of the pistons and connecting rods and stuff like that. Basically build it as a full race engine, which is my first time doing that, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. The second step is going to be stripping down this bike, which should actually be pretty quick and pretty easy. I've done it a lot of times now. I'll pull the engine out of it and get the frame ready. And during that, I've got a bit of work to do on the fairings and stuff like that. They'll actually be getting a fresh coat of paint and some other stuff like that. Then the engine will be going in, we'll be mocking that all up, and I'll have to build some custom mounts. There'll be a lot of custom fabrication starting at this step in the process. Once we get the engine all mounted and mocked up, I'm going to go into electrical, which is going to be a bit challenging because it's not something that I'm super confident with. It's going to involve using the entire ignition, CDI, stuff like that out of the Ninja 500 and mounting it up to work in the Ninja 250 chassis. I'm not going to worry about instrumentation, gauges and things of that nature. I'm not too concerned about that at this stage. The goal is basically just to get the bike so that it can be turned on, ran, stuff like that as we start the next processes. So after that, what's going to be happening is I will be making a new exhaust for it, and that's not entirely decided what I'm going to do yet, because this Ninja 500 actually runs 2 headers out to 2 mufflers, one on either side of the bike. This one I'd like to do out the right side like the traditional Ninja. The goal is to keep it as somewhat of a sleeper build. I don't necessarily want it to be super crazy obvious that this has lots of work done to it. So I'll probably be working with someone who's better at that kind of stuff once I get to that stage. This is where things like the flow bench come in determining exactly what size piping we need and stuff like that, and doing some more of the math and technical stuff, as well as I'll be putting an O2 sensor in the exhaust. Yes, this is a carbureted bike. Typically you don't use O2 sensors on carburetors, but it's just going to make it a lot easier with a wideband O2 to sit down with a laptop and be able to do data logging and stuff like that and tune it mathematically, as opposed to just kind of guessing and seeing what feels better. I don't have a dyno, so I'm not going to be able to run this on a dyno. It'll be entirely down to air-fuel ratio tuning, so I'd like to keep that as good as I can through the whole rev range, not just based off of what I think it feels like. So I like the idea of tuning that way a lot better. Of course, after exhaust is done and taken care of, we're going to then have to try and fit all of the fairings and gauges and stuff like that back on, get everything wired up and working like a normal bike. I do want my tach, my speedometer, stuff like that. I'll be putting in engine coolant temperature sensors to monitor that, as well as the wideband gauge. So there's going to be a lot of stuff happening with the dash and with electronics. I've got access to a 3D print shop and some other really cool tools like that, 3D scanners and laser etching and all sorts of stuff. So I can do some really cool stuff there, and the goal is to kind of make a custom dash that'll work with it. And depending on what you guys want to see and how interested you are in the build, I'll probably keep the GoPro along for the test and tune and actually getting the bike on the road, getting things running. I'm not sure if we're going to have to go in depth with some stuff like extended swing arms or suspension geometry once we start trying to put it on the track and put times down. That'll all be determined later on. But if you guys are enjoying that and want to see more, I'll definitely keep updating through that and maybe even into the races. the goal overall is basically to have a fun track bike as my second bike and to keep it street legal. I'm not overly concerned about it being super streetable, so I'm not worried that putting the 500 motor in it is going to make it too heavy or handle weird, stuff like that. It's just going to be something fun to race, take out to the bike meets on the weekend, show off my work, stuff like that. I'm not too concerned about the actual streetability and use of it. So yeah, that's the basic plan. I just wanted to do a bit of an introduction, let you guys know that I'm back and that we're going to be starting this new project, which I'm super excited about. So I'm just filming on the GoPro right now. I am going to be getting another camera, and I'm going to have a lot of people in and out helping me out with this stuff. I'm going to have some people filming and other cameras going and stuff like that as well. Whatever you guys want to see, I'm totally open to ideas and other options and stuff like that as well along the build process. I look forward to hearing some feedback from you guys, as well as working with a team of pretty awesome people to get this done. But for right now, I just wanted to film a bit of an introduction, let you guys know what's happening and what's going to be taking place over the next 6 months or so. I know it's been a long time, but we're coming back in a big way, and this is going to be a pretty fun season coming up, I think. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, during this build, I will be keeping track of price and stuff like that, both including the bike and all of the parts, as well as what I recover from the sale of extra parts and stuff like that off of this bike. Just for any of you guys that are curious what it costs, in case any of you guys actually are considering doing something like this at home, I want to make it clear that it is something that's accessible to do at home if you've got the right tools and the right knowledge and stuff like that. That this isn't something crazy that you need a machine shop and stuff like that to be able to do. So I'll be keeping a full rundown of the entire build, price-wise, just stuff like that, so that we can keep track as well. And for my own curiosity at the end, so I can know how much money I've wasted on this. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you later.